Disney held their Q2 earnings call yesterday, and it gave us an updated view on the health of Disney parks and the Disney company. So let's talk about the numbers and what they mean, and in some cases, what they really mean. And we'll also cover some very enlightening comments made about the reservation system, Genie Plus, and even maybe a ride that's been in question in Tomorrowland and its future. All this and more coming up next on Fresh Baked. Hi guys, David here with Fresh Baked, and today I want to get into the results of yesterday's earnings call for the Disney company and what it means for its future. I pay attention to these reports because I'm interested in the financial health of the Disney company and of the Disney parks, and also because there are often some very interesting little news nuggets that come out of there, some comments made, or sometimes they even break news. But for now, let's start with the basics. Per Bob Chapek, domestic parks were a standout. They continue to fire on all cylinders, powered by strong demand, coupled with customized and personalized guest experience enhancements. They grew per capita spending by more than 40% versus 2019. Customized and personalized guest enhancements, that's code for the reservation system and Genie Plus. And he's touting them and saying that these are the anchors. These are the reasons why Disney parks were successful in the past quarter. And it's an interesting stat that he singled out in the beginning of his prepared remarks, talking about the per capita spending being up 40% versus 2019. Per capita spending is essentially, on average, how much does each guest spend when they're in the park each day? And it's a number that Chapek loves. He loves to talk about per capita spending, especially in terms of how much better that number is in Walt Disney World versus how it is in Disneyland. We've been saying this for years. They're trying to turn Disneyland guests into Walt Disney World guests because of the per capita spending is so good at Walt Disney World. We don't spend a lot of money here, apparently, at Disneyland. Now, I assume he's comparing it to 2019, which is an odd year to compare it to as opposed to last year or even last quarter. But I assume they're doing that because that is the last Q2 pre-COVID, pre-pandemic. But obviously, it gives them an opportunity to show a very big number as well, comparing it to 2019 versus it was up against 2020 as well. I think it's 20% versus 2020. Also, revenue is up versus 2019, $6.1 billion for Disney parks in 2019, $6.6 billion for Disney parks in 2022. And I mention this to show that it looks like, it sounds like that Disney parks have returned to similar levels that were pre-pandemic. The parks are back financially, and that is a very good sign for Disney, and that hopefully will allow Disney to feel, more willing to separate themselves from some of that revenue and improve the parks in ways that maybe they weren't thinking about doing in previous times. A lot of projects were put on hold because they didn't feel like they had the revenue to see them through. But with the parks appearing to return to normal, we should hopefully be able to look forward to a regular, consistent upgrade schedule. Okay, the other big news coming out of this earnings call was that apparently Disney has blown away expectations for Disney Plus with respect to subscriptions, new subscriptions in the last quarter. They were projected to earn about 4 million subs in the last quarter, but instead they nearly doubled that at 7.9 million subs. And it's this news, I believe, that shot Disney's stock up 3% when that report became public. And if you've been following along recently with the Disney stock situation, it has been in a free fall for about, 6 months or more, total free fall. And a large part of the Disney stock free fall is tethered to Disney Plus. It went up during the shutdown. Disney stock went up during the shutdown because of Disney Plus, but it's going down post-shutdown, even though everything's back open because of Disney Plus as well. Streaming services in general have been dipping. Netflix stock is a disaster right now. So much of Disney's success with the stock price is tethered, like I said, to the performance of Disney Plus. So having this number, these 7.9 million subs, was great news for Disney investors. And it's a sign that perhaps Disney can, overcome the same issues that are afflicting Netflix. Maybe it's more than just people are tired of streaming. Maybe it has more to do with Netflix than it does with streaming services in general. But then I learned about half of those nearly 8 million subs were for Disney's Hotstar, which is a Disney Plus equivalent in India. Well, sort of. You see, Hotstar sells for $6 a year, not a month, a year. So it's not exactly a financial boon to the Disney company. You can't make an equivalence from Hotstar to Disney Plus or even ESPN Plus or Hulu. But again, it does look good in an earnings call when they're trying to boost confidence in the Disney company. They're really trying to boost investor confidence in the Disney company right now. Now, this is not to say that Disney is not doing well. They are doing well. It's just not as sexy as they were making it seem. The reality is that Disney Plus is on basically the same trajectory as it has been. And it's doing well. It's climbing. Subs are climbing while Netflix subs are declining. They're catching up quickly. So I think that Disney Plus is going to be a very big player in the streaming service. It's very important. Bob Chapek calls it one of a kind, and there's a reason for that. And that's because Disney has pulled all of their content from other streaming services like Netflix and Prime. So if you want to see a Marvel movie, you've got to go to the movie theater or you've got to get Disney Plus. Or I guess you could buy a Blu-ray. Does anybody still buy physical media? I miss physical media a lot. I mean, I miss Blockbuster, and even more, I miss physical media. I miss collecting things. But anyway, all we do is stream now. We've got 16 different streaming services out there. Okay, one final note on Disney Plus. I got a little sidetracked there. One final note. Chapek made a point of saying that nearly half of all Disney Plus subscribers are adults without children. And with that, I believe he's trying to say that Disney's customers are more than just families. As in, he's trying to address, indirectly, without actually addressing it, he's trying to address the drama, the situation in Florida with the Parental Rights Education Act. This topic, and by extension, Reedy Creek, was not mentioned at all, which I'm not surprised. I wouldn't expect them to bring up the Don't Say Gay bill, but I thought it was possible they might try to address what their position will be going forward with regard to Reedy Creek, because it's very important what's happening with Reedy Creek, with how the Disney company is doing financially, with the success of that company, and investors may want to know what Disney's plans are, but they did not address it. But they did say, Bob Chapek did say, we're not just families. We're, half of our Disney Plus subscribers are adults without families. Now, Chapek doesn't want to talk about Reedy Creek in that earnings call, but we're going to. There have been some new developments in the Reedy Creek story that we're going to get to you soon. We're working on a story on that now. Hopefully have that for you in a couple of days. But big picture, I do feel like that situation is on a trajectory that we pretty much thought would happen. It's going to be quiet on this front for a little while. By this time next year, I think everything will be resolved to the point where we won't have noticed anything. But for now, let's get back to Disney parks and that per capita spending number that Chapek talked about, the 40% gain over 2019. Up 40% from 2019, up 20% from 2020, but they didn't mention 2021. And they also did not include any specific data in the report, only that per capita spending was up. But I think it's fair to say that this increase, this sudden boom in per capita spending is due to Genie Plus. I personally had wondered if guests would buy Genie Plus in lieu of buying something else in the parks, meaning that whatever gain they got from Genie Plus would be offset by income that they didn't earn somewhere else. That is, they'll spend $15 or $20 for Genie Plus, but they won't buy, the popcorn bucket or some other souvenir, or maybe they might even bring in their own food to save that $15 or whatever the cost is. But a 20% gain over 2020 does suggest to me that it's possible, that it's likely, at least some of that is due to the fact that people are getting Genie Plus and still spending as they normally did on other things, food, merchandise, etc. And I think that's what Chapek was alluding to in the opening remarks about how they are encouraged by how Genie Plus is doing. Mind you, this is Genie Plus for the entire country, for both Walt Disney World and Disneyland. Genie Plus is doing exactly what they wanted to do in Walt Disney World. They are selling it like crazy to the point where just about everybody has it. Meanwhile, at Disneyland, not so much, but I feel like they're going to drag Disneyland through this process through the years. They're going to keep trying to sell Genie Plus here because they want to have some sort of symmetry between the two parks. Again, another example of how they're trying to create one world for Disney parks to live in the U.S., whereas we all know, we're kind of aware, if you spend any time at all here at Disneyland, it's different. It's different here. But like the Disney Plus news, I'd like to see how that number looks come May of next year. I want to see what the year-over-year figures and then what the quarter-over-quarter figures look like in the coming quarters. Comparing it still, even now, it is really difficult to compare data right now. Very difficult. In fact, it's even made more difficult by the fact that Disney has consolidated their segments, their revenue segments. They used to report to, like in 2019, they reported to 4 or 5 different revenue segments. Now there's just 2 revenue segments. There's parks and there's media, and that's it. So stay tuned on that. That's going to be an interesting development in the next year. I'm hoping I get to make this video again next year. We'll see. But for now, let's wrap with some comments that were made outside of the pure numbers. Let's talk about this particular comment from Bob Chapek. Chapek made a very cryptic but also revealing statement. He said their domestic yield strategy had allowed the Disney company to increase per capita spending without having to rely solely on raising ticket prices, adding that the company does not see any end in sight for that. Yield management is code for the reservation system. That's the bottom line there. Yield management, per Chapek, is allowing Disney to increase per capita spending without having to raise ticket prices. And he does not see any end in sight for that. Couple things. Obviously, this means that reservations are here to stay. They're not going anywhere, regardless of what happens with the Magic Key lawsuit. That is not even on the top of their mind, I don't think. They're gonna figure that out, and then they're gonna keep doing what they're doing. So for those of us holding out hope that might go away, that the reservation system might change, I mean, it could still change. The reservation system still could change, but it's not going away. Stay tuned on that, I guess. And then also, he said that they're doing this, they're using the reservation system so they don't have to raise ticket prices. We'll see about that. Also, we'll see in August when the annual passes, when Magic Keys come up for renewal, and we'll see next February, which is the traditional time in which ticket prices are increased. They've been raising ticket prices every year in around January, February, March, every year for the past, 30 years, 40 years. So I don't know. I'm going to send Chapek an email in January just to remind him of the things he said. But that is what he said, so that they're using the reservation system to keep ticket prices down. And finally, one last comment that Chapek made that really got me thinking. He went on a bit about how well Disney media is doing, films, studios, Lightyear and Marvel and etc. But he also made specific mention about a film that's in production right now that was oddly out of the blue, Nautilus. They're making a movie, an origin story about the Nautilus, which is Captain Nemo's submarine from the film 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. One of Disney's first ever live action films. I believe it was like 5th in line. If we're looking to understand why Disney put any money into the Nemo Lagoon when all evidence pointed to the fact that they shouldn't, I present to you the Nautilus. Follow us on Instagram at _FreshBaked, on Twitter at FreshBakedDisney, that's fresh with no E, and on TikTok at FreshBakedDisney. If you like our show and want to show your support, please do consider joining our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/FreshBaked. Otherwise, thanks again for watching, everybody. We love you. Be safe out there. Be kind to one another. And Fresh Baked.